Hello everybody, it's Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and on today's show I thought what I would talk about, once I adjust my microphone, it's better. I thought today what I'd talk about is my ongoing projects. It is a new year, Happy New Year, and this is episode 96 too, as a matter of fact, and so I'm going to talk about what's behind me. You've seen it before, I've been talking about it. I finally got the quilt top finished. This is the reproduction of an original quilt made by my grandmother back in the late 70s, and I've, as you know, have given it a 21st century twist, and so the top is all done. Now once I get it layered and quilted, what I'm planning to do is I will put the two quilts side by side so you can see how they are similar and how I've done it a little bit differently. One of the major things that I have done or have made a decision to do about this quilt is the original had prairie points. I don't like prairie points that much. I'm sorry, this may insult some people, but to me prairie points are old-fashioned. They're kind of reminiscent of an old lady with flowered wallpaper. I've decided to do this in a little bit more modern tradition. Now, as I said, lots of people like prairie points. They're just not for me. I've done them once on a table runner. It looked okay, but there's something about prairie points around a quilt that just, to me, says this is from the past, and I'm going with the 21st century version of this quilt. So, no prairie points. Now, as far as the borders are concerned, this whole quilt has been basically made from, with the exception of the white, from 10-inch squares, a couple of layer cakes. And so I had some of the colors that were in the quilt left over in the layer cakes, and I decided to use those. I pieced them together to create the two color of blue borders that are on it. The white, of course, was made from yardage. All the white is from yardage. I think it's turned out really nice. So my next stage is to get it layered, which is a bitch. I do not like layering. I hate that. I think that's the part about quilting I hate the most. If I had a huge flat work table that would handle a queen size quilt that I could lay my backing and my batting all down on and smooth it out, I think I'd like it more. And if it was an area in my house where that could be up all the time. But seeing how I do not have that kind of setup, I've got to get out my tables and, my collapsible tables, put them all together in my rec room, the room next door to this, and get it all laid out. Now, I am going to do this though using my vertical method, which basically is an adaptation of layering a quilt on a wall. I have seen many YouTube videos about that. I didn't have a wall available, and I think a couple of, or maybe 4 or 5 videos back, you can find where I actually used the method of where I put my folding tables up on their ends and use those like a wall to layer my quilt. And that's how I'm going to do this one as well. I find that method gets rid of, it's easier to get rid of the bumps and the bulges in the backing and in the batting as well. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. And then as far as quilting it is concerned, well, I think I'm just going to do walking foot, wavy line quilting on this one. And I'm doing that for a couple of reasons. One, this is a really large quilt. So when I go to quilt it, I'm not a master of free motion quilting by any stretch of the imagination yet, if I ever will be. I am better at ruler foot quilting, but again, I'm still at a very basic level with that. And there are so many curves and little squares in here, I really don't know what to do. And quite honestly, I'm getting tired of this quilt now that I've spent this time on it. So I really don't want to blow the quilting on it. So I think I'll just stick to the tried and true method that works for me every time, and that's the walking foot method. Also, it's fairly fast. Now, what my grandmother did on the original quilt was it looked like she did stitch in the ditch, but she did it by hand. I'm certainly not going to try doing this by hand, although someday down the road I wouldn't mind trying to hand quilt a piece, but it would be a small piece. Like I might start with a table runner or placemat, something like that. Because as you know, because I've said it many times, there's a lot of bloodletting when I do hand sewing. Although I'm getting a little better with it, just like anything, practice makes perfect. But I certainly wouldn't start on a full-size quilt as my first effort at hand quilting. But that's what she did, and it was stitch in the ditch. And my grandmother had beautiful stitching. Her stitches are all even. The precision that she could do was incredible. But I have said this before, my grandmother won prizes at, local fairs and things like that for her stitch work. So yeah, she was an expert in that kind of thing. But anyways, that's my plan for this one, and when I get that part done, I'll show it to you. Now, I've got to look for some backing fabric in my stash. I've just thought about this the other day. I have backing fabrics that I've bought that are 108 inches wide, and I buy about 3 meters of those each time. And I've been sort of collecting them. But you want to know something? It doesn't matter how much stuff you have in your stash, you never seem to have that perfect piece. So I've got to look through mine and see what I can do. If I can't find anything, or if I don't have enough of something, I could piece a back. I'm trying to avoid that because, as I said, I'm a little bit tired of working on this quilt now. And but I am determined that I'm getting this one done. I am not starting any other major projects until I get this one completely done, because I do not want to add it to my UFO stack. I've got enough of those. So anyways, I'm happy with it. It's now in the colors. Walter says to me, the only reason you're doing this is because you didn't get the color you wanted when she gave you the quilt. Yes. What's the matter with that? Yes, and that is also, because this is sort of an homage to my grandmother as a quilter. It's too bad that she's no longer with us, because I think she would be really happy that one of her grandchildren took up quilting. I think. My grandmother was a very reserved woman, so I don't know what she would have thought. But anyways, that's what I'm doing. So let's move on and talk about what other things have been happening currently. Well, New Year's came and went, and I hope everybody had a good New Year's, and I hope everybody was safe and blah, 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 right? I was on a virtual sew days with my guild on New Year's Day, and that was fun. I enjoy those. I really do. I'm the only guy, but, it gives me, as I've said before, it is really important, I think, to, do some retreat-style virtual sew days right now when we're all isolated, because I find it gets me going and I get a lot accomplished during them. But anyways, they had actually two. They had one on New Year's Eve. It started at 7 o'clock at night, and they called it Quilt Until You Wilt, and it went on to, well, I found out the next day, because I did not participate in this. I found out the next day they had about 16 or 18 people join in on that, and a couple of them stayed online sewing until 3 o'clock in the morning. Not me. I would be way in bed before then. I also didn't want to do the New Year's Eve thing because I'm not alone. I have Walter, and he doesn't quilt, he garment sews. He probably could have joined in on it, even though he's not a guild member, but I'm sure I'm on the executive. I have sway, maybe, if he so desired. But I mean, New Year's Eve, we should be together, and we were. And what did we do New Year's Eve? We actually had appies. Walter made up a bunch of them, but he did them in stages. So we just sort of grazed through the night and stayed up. I stayed up till midnight. He stays up long past midnight every night of the week. But for me, that's late, and especially when you go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. But I did stay up. We watched the fireworks on YouTube from around the world, Australia, New Zealand, Dubai, London, that kind of thing. Sadly, Canada did not have a great representation of fireworks, but then again, you put them out there, people may come, and we don't want people. you know, congregating for this kind of thing right now. So anyways, that's what we did on New Year's Eve. Real thrill. YouTube and appies. So anyways, I didn't join in on the guild sewing thing, but I did the next day, and as I said, I had a lot of fun, and I got a lot of this one done on that day as well. So bonus. Okay, so I just said that this is my main project to get done. Do I have other projects? Oh yes, of course I have other projects, but one that's coming up that's kind of interesting, I guess. It is my guild is sponsoring a mystery quilt. We were given the basic instructions of like the fabrics we need and how to select them. I'm going to show those to you, but we have not yet seen the pattern. I guess that's the mystery. I'm really not sure yet clear on how this mystery works, if it's a series of rows or blocks or something, and that these are issued to us, you know, something each month and away we go. I think that is how it works, but I don't know any more about it as of yet. But we were told, let's get some things laid out here. Now, where did I put my instructions? Well, that's interesting. Oh, I've got them hanging up on the wall. But anyways, what it said was you had to pick 5 fabrics, and there's 2 sizes. You can either make a throw or you can make a, I think it was a twin, something like that. I'm going for the smallest one on this project because I had to shop my stash for this, so I had to check out my quantities of fabric. Coffee. And I think the guideline was, first of all, you had to pick a focus fabric, your central fabric. And so I did. I had this in my stash, and I think it's very, very pretty. And it's got my colors in it, the blues, the purples. The greens look good in this, and there's even a little bit of red. So I figured from that, according to the instructions, for the next fabrics, you are to use this as your color palette. Okay, makes sense to me because that's usually how I design a quilt. You know, I find a fabric I like, and that's my focal, and then from that I draw my other colors from it. So I pretty much think that's not something new to me. I mean, everybody must do that, right? So the second fabric should come from your palette, go with it, but it should be the darkest of your fabrics. So I had this blue, it's a little mottled, in my stash, and I had lots of it. So that's good. So that's going to go with that. I think it works. Then for your third fabric, you were to pick something that could be, it could be a solid, it could be a print, it could be mottled, but the print was supposed to be a fairly large print. And again, pick up your color palette. Well, I had this. This is a batik. It's got little butterflies on it. And again, here's my focal fabric. So I think it will go with that without any problem. Fabric 4 was the largest amount. I think for the throw it's 3.2 meters. So that limited me as to what I could pick because I didn't have very many fabrics to pick from that I had over 3 meters of in my stash. But I did have this white with this leaf print on it, which this is actually going to be used as a background with this. So, you know, can you go wrong with white? No. So I had lots of this, so that's the one I'm going with. And then the 5th fabric was one that was supposed to, it could have a print, but the print should be, it had to be a light. It had to read as a light. The one I've picked picks up the colors in the main fabric. It does have a pattern to it. It's supposed to have a pattern that will not overpower the pattern in your main fabric. There's a lot of parameters on this, okay? And it should read light. So this is what I picked because it's got a little white in it. It's got some purple in it. It's even got a little subtle green, moves towards a teal. But the pattern's very different from my main fabric. And I think it works. This took me a while to pick out all of these fabrics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay them here down on my table. And I'm just going to let you see what they all look like together. I think they're going to work. Well, put it this way, they're going to have to work. Okay, this is going to be tricky, so bear with me as I try to bring the camera down so you can see these. Okay, so there you have them. Now I should turn them this way for you because they're reading from left to right. So there we go. So there's my main one, there's my darkest, there's a mid-tone, there's my background, and there's my light. Now, I did do a trick that I saw on a YouTube video where they suggested that if you want to see the tonal value of what you have picked, take a picture of them and change the picture to black and white. So you basically get a grayscale. And you know, it worked out. I did use that, and that did help me select the fabrics for this too. So those are the ones I'm going to use for this mystery quilt. Actually, I think it's going to look quite nice together, except I don't know what the pattern is yet. I have no idea what the blocks look like. It's all a mystery to me. So let's put you back up. Okay, there we go. So I'm looking forward to this project, and I'm just going to pile all my fabrics back in my little basket here to keep myself organized for this. See? Have them all in a little basket, ready to go. And we'll see. And I think you're crooked. And I don't think that made it any better. Okay. Such a professional. All right. So that's that project. Now, ongoing projects. Okay. My UFOs. More coffee. So behind me on the curtain reveal here, I'll show you my next two UFOs out of my set. Let me get my wire down here before I trip on it. This is UFO, this one's UFO number 7. Is that in the shot? Yeah, there you go. I don't remember if this was actually a pattern or if I made this up. I think it was a pattern. I know it's called jagged X's. You know, you get these X's here, and then you've got all these squares. I don't think it was a class. I think I saw it in a magazine or on YouTube. It was probably a free pattern. I really don't remember. That's the problem with UFOs, you know, you can't remember what it is that where you got the pattern or when you did it. But so by the looks of it, I think I did it all from scraps. So it's a scrappy quilt. It's a little unusual. Am I absolutely loving it? Well, I don't hate it. Okay, put it that way. Now, the reason I say that is it's the colors. I am not a big fan of browns and greens, okay? And I'm also not a fan of pinks. So now I'm trying to think, why did I pick these colors? I guess it was because I had a whole bunch of leftover strips or something like that, and I just decided to go with it. Now, I do notice on here, I did do mitered corners on the borders. Yeah, these are mitered. I don't know if you can see them very well down here, but those are mitered. Did I do them perfectly? Came close. But as I critique my own quilt, I do notice that my mitered corners and a couple of them are just a teensy bit off. But you know, a man on a galloping horse going 3 miles an hour would never notice it. So, yeah. Now, this one, I'm thinking now, I'm trying to get my mindset into charity quilts, giving some of my quilts away when I do them. My problem is I've worked on them. I love them all. I don't want to give them away. But the reality is, what am I going to do with them? So I'm thinking this one might become a charity quilt. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know when I'll get to this one to get it all quilted. But anyways, there it is, Jagged X. Okay, let's move Jagged X out of the way. And let's go with this one. Now this one is bright, bold, and beautiful. And it was made up of some orphan blocks. That's an orphan block up there, and also I've got a little embroidery on that one. I must have been trying something and it didn't work out. I've got some flying geese in here. This is probably left over from another quilt I did called Flying Geese Galore, which was a class that I took. Here's one down here. There's some embroidery. You probably can't see it. There's some decorative stitching on here. This must have been a crazy patch block that I did, trying to experiment with something there. So all of these blocks were kind of experiments. I think some of them I filled in more with just using up some scraps and did some wonky, pieces. Put some more of this. I had a ton of this fabric that's here, these batiks, which I don't particularly like. But when I first got into quilting, that was probably one of my first jelly rolls. And I probably figured, hey, this is kind of cool. So what I've done is, again, this is one, I think I've got it actually hung up the wrong way. It should probably hang around the other way, I think, because it's not really a square, it is a rectangle. Anyways, there's some K-facet in there as well. Again, this one might be one I could use as practice in doing some free motion quilting on it, and it could end up as a charity quilt as well, because I don't mind it, but really it looks very amateurish, It's just a mishmash. I call it my improv quilt. That's what I'm calling it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So anyways, it's colorful. It is colorful. And as a charity quilt, hey, what the heck? Beggars can't be choosers. That sounded kind of bad, didn't it? Okay, let me get my cords out of my way here. So those are on the block. I think I have one more. Well, I don't think. I know I have one more UFO hanging up in there, and I'll show you that on the next episode of The Idiot Quilter. So I do have another project. Now, this project has been basically hanging over my head for a couple of years. I love Australia. How could you not? I talk about it all the time. Our last trip to Australia was 2 years ago now, going on almost 3, possibly. God, how time flies when you're not having fun. When I was there the last time, I had decided that we were going to hit fabric stores wherever we were in Australia. And I was going to buy what I considered was fabric that screamed Australia. Now, what screams Australia for me is a lot of the Aboriginal style prints. So I bought a lot of fat quarters. I didn't really buy much yardage. I bought mostly fat quarters because they were easier, because I had to get these back home, right, on the airplane. So they start to add up in weight. And you know what the airlines are like, or were like back in the old days. They charge you for everything. So anyways, and I was only taking one suitcase. I probably could have thrown all caution to the wind, taken 2 suitcases and filled one with fabric and be done with it. But I didn't. I could have, though. It was easy enough because I hit some fabulous fabric stores when I was in Australia. Anyways, I collected all these pieces. My idea was I was going to create an Australian quilt as a memory of my time in Australia. And I'm still going to do it. But, life happens, and the best laid plans. And really, I think as a quilter, the way that I have developed is that I get grandiose ideas, but I realize I don't have the skills to pull them off yet. So I put them on the back burner, and then one day, for some reason, I revisit it and realize, hey, wait, I do now have the skills. I can do that. And suddenly, the whole plan becomes much clearer in my mind. So I started this quilt off with, there was a place I went to. Where was that? That was in Cairns, I think. Yes, I think it was Cairns. And we went to this fabric store. It was great. It was also a craft store. It had everything. I talked to the guy that was in there that ran it. He was great. And he directed me towards these appliques. He had these together as a kit with the fabric in the kit for them. Now at that point I hadn't done much applique at all. I still haven't done all that much, but I'm getting better at applique. So I took this on and I did it, and it turned out quite nice. Now this, as you can see, let me stand back a bit, trip over my stool. As you can see, this is a large block. It's 20 by 20. Now I have 3 more of these. They're different animals. And I have not done any of those yet. My original idea was I was going to have all 4 of them as the central part of a quilt, and then I would use the Aboriginal style fabrics that I bought in Australia and, you know, build the quilt from there. That was my original idea, but I've changed my idea. I'm thinking maybe putting 4 of these large things into one quilt is a bit overpowering. And also, as I add more blocks to it, it's going to become a really large quilt. So I have changed my mind on that. I'm going to use this one as my central block, but I'm going to surround it with a bunch of blocks that look something like this. This is that technique that I showed you where I used the circular sewing tool for my sewing machine to do the applique around a circle on a square. And I showed you last week those templates that I had printed on my 3D printer and to do the circle in a square kind of idea with the star. So I thought, I'm going to adapt that. I looked up the Australian flag, and of course the Australian flag has these 3 colors, blue, red, and white in it. And they also have several stars on the flag, but one of those is a 7-pointed star, which is what this is here in the center. And it's called the Federation Star, and I think each point represents one of the states. I'm not sure if they call them states or provinces. I think it's states in Australia. My Australian friends can correct me on that. So I basically did the same method as I did with the other 5-pointed star on a circle in a square. I cut out, this is a 7-inch square. This is a 5 1/4 inch circle. And I created a template for the 7-pointed star, and I cut the template out on my Cricut machine and then used, I have a charm pack of white squares that have a slight pattern to them. I don't know if you can see that a little bit there. And I cut them out. I used my circular sewing tool on the sewing machine for the circle, and then I did machine applique, and actually I had to do it pretty much freehand. And actually, I think I did a pretty good job. And I actually did the star. I did a blanket stitch on all of them, but I did both the circle and the star in just a red thread. Now, originally I was going to use a white thread on the star for a couple of reasons. One, if I make a mistake, it won't be that apparent. But I forgot to change, in my excitement of making this, I forgot to change my thread color. And actually, I like the red on the white, so I'm going to stick to that. Now in the center then, I have some embroidery files that have about 15 different animals from Australia. So I embroidered. I set it up and I embroidered this kangaroo on it. I am going to make, I think I need to make, I think I worked it out, I need 3, 6, 9, I think I need 12 of these blocks, and they're going to go all around the perimeter of this. A little hard to show, but you get the idea. They'll go all the way around. Now, there probably will be some sashing involved, some coping strips as they call them, because mathematically these are not going to work out evenly on each side. So I have to do a little bit of fudging to make it look like it's equal distant all the way around. That's the one thing about quilting I find difficult is math. I wasn't bad at math when I was in high school. I'm still not bad at math, but for some reason I always get my numbers off. I don't know why. But anyways, so I've already got background squares cut, circle squares cut, stars cut. I just need to applique those pieces and do a different animal in the center of each one of these. And then from there, I'll see what that center block looks like, and I'll decide then what I'm going to do with the rest of the quilt. So that's a project that I will probably get more into after I finish my grandma's quilt, getting that one quilted. So that's a project that's coming up. Now, of course, I told you that I had picked out all these patterns I'm going to do in the next year, and they're all sitting over there where you can't see on my vision board. So yes, those are there as well. But anyways, that's what I plan to do, okay, with that one. All right, so I think that's it for projects right now for this part of the new year. Shout outs today go to Power Tools with Thread, a YouTube channel. She does quilting and she does a lot of embroidery. She has a long arm machine. She has a domestic embroidery machine. She has a more industrial style embroidery machine. It looks like she's got a huge work area. I'm jealous of all these things she has. But the one thing I like about it, that if you're into embroidery, she has a lot of tips and tricks and things that she shares with you that are very helpful. And if you're into quilting, and if you're into long arm quilting and things like that, she's got a lot of stuff there too. So she uses technology for her quilting. And that's, I think, what appeals to me and what drew me to her channel, because I'm all about the toys, the power toys. I love using those in sewing. I know the purists out there go, oh, no, 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 you should not be doing that. That's not really the art of sewing. Yes, it is. It's just that I have chosen to come into the 21st century and use the technology that's available to us. Is it cheating? No, I don't think it is. Other people do. I think the people who bitch about it being cheating are simply people who haven't figured out how to use the technology yet. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Okay, so check it out. I've got the link to Power Tools with Thread in my show notes. And you're going to find something else which is happening tomorrow that's in the show notes. So I got to get this up today so you know it's there. Now, if you're a regular follower of my vlogs, my weekly vlogs, and of Stephen and Walter Live, you already know about this. But the first Wednesday of every month, I have something, a Zoom meeting called Craft and Chat. Last month, the December's meeting, we changed it to a mini retreat or sew day, whatever you want to call it. Instead of just talking, we were working on our projects, and everybody seemed to enjoy that. I did. I certainly had a good time with it. So that's how Craft and Chats are working from here on in. So the one that's going to happen tomorrow, January the 6th, 2021, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is simply that. Bring your craft. Now, it doesn't have to be quilting or sewing. It can be paper crafting, scrapbooking, card making, crochet, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It's just an opportunity for you in the afternoon during this time of lockdown and everything else to get together with like-minded people and just work on whatever we want to do. Now, we do, have conversation. It's very informal. We'll talk about what we're working on. We share ideas. Someone might have a problem with something. You throw it out there to the group. It's just very, very friendly. There's, as Barb Owen would say on her channel, no drama. We do not talk about COVID. We do not talk about stupid things politicians are doing to us these days. No, we just are a bunch of crafters, get together and enjoy each other's company as we work in a very relaxed, informal environment. So that's tomorrow. The link for the Zoom meeting is in the show notes below. Feel free to come and go as you please. If you can't be there right at 1 o'clock, doesn't matter. Okay. Come in whenever you can, and you can leave whenever you want to. Originally, I set this up as only a couple of hours. Last time we went for about 3 hours. It won't go beyond probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon because I have other things to do, okay, as well at that time. But yeah, I hope you can join us. And I'll probably be either quilting that grandma's quilt in behind there, or I may be working on these. depends on how much space I need. I need a lot of space for the grandma's quilt, which means I'd have to set up my sewing machine and my tables out in the rec room, and that's not conducive to doing a Zoom because I have this room set up to do Zoom. So we'll see. Okay, so last week I mentioned that I put in an order for some more of the Timholtz abandoned line of fabrics from a place in Regina called Peachtree Quilt Shop / Northgate Sewing Center. I got very quickly I got a note from them that said it had been shipped. Now it's coming by Canada Post, so I don't know where it is because I do not have a tracking number on this, which is something I don't like. But they didn't send me a tracking number. They sent me, you know, a thing that I can go onto the website and see, and all it says is your order has been shipped. So I don't know when I'm going to get it. I don't know where it is. It's been now over a week, like about almost 10 days, 8 to 10 days, and I haven't seen it yet. So I'm going to give it to the end of this week. If I don't see it by then, I'm going to write to them and just, I don't know what they can do, because once it's in the Canadian Postal Service, well, that's basically out of their hands. But maybe they have a way of figuring out. Anyways, we'll see. You know, it's got to give them a bit of a break too, because I ordered it, you know, between Christmas and New Year's kind of a deal, and you know, there was holidays for postal workers, and they always blame COVID for everything and why things are not being delivered as fast as usual, and you know, yada 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 yada. So I'll give it a little bit more time and see. I'm not going to worry about it too much yet. I mean, I'm not in a panic for those fabrics yet. They're from another project, the Timholtz one I talked about there a week or two ago. Okay, so just before I finish up here, just some final thoughts. This goes back to the whole thing about online classes and retreats. A lot of people have had this attitude, I think, that because 2020 is now over, then we're back to normal. Like as if COVID had a calendar and could say, you know, yep, end of 2020, end of me, bye-bye. Wish it did, but it didn't. We're still in this thing. Here where I live in Ontario, it's gotten worse. We're in a 28-day lockdown across the province. Vaccines are here, but the government is not getting them out as quickly as they should be. But anyways, we're going to be in this situation for the greater part of 2021. I would say we're probably going to be in this situation, although it may be getting a little better, but we're not going to be back to normal, I don't think, until 2022. So let's suck it up, buttercups, shall we? That is life. We're getting good at how to survive during lockdown, so let's carry on with that. And the best way to keep your mojo for your sewing is to join an online retreat or class or whatever. Many of the instructors for quilting, well-known ones, have got on the bandwagon. They are posting on their websites and things like that when they are doing their virtual retreats or classes and things like that. Why not take a class? I always have fun when I take a class. And we're so used to using Zoom now and doing this virtual stuff that we can still have fun in that environment. And as I've said before, a lot of advantages to doing these things online. You don't have to lug all your equipment with you. You can do it right in the comfort of your own studio or sewing room. You can have your coffee, you can do whatever, your chocolate, whatever gets you through. And you want to know something? I have a feeling that when we do go back to normal, I think we'll still be taking advantage of the virtual world with this. I think that's, and I don't think that's a bad thing. So, you know, if you're feeling right now, because this is the beginning of January and it's after Christmas, and in normal times, there's such a thing as the seasonal blues. And especially after Christmas, after the hubbub of Christmas, the holidays, New Year's and everything, people do tend to feel a little depressed. So get out of your depression. Join an online group. Do a class. Attend a lecture. Whatever. Just go for it. Because I think, well, at least for me, I have found that's keeping me going by doing that kind of thing. And that's why I offer Craft and Chat as well. as part of that. And the best part about my Crafted Chat is it's free. Yay, it's free, as if anybody would pay me anyways. But there it is. So, okay, that's all I want to say about that. So I'm going to finish up now. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you gleaned something from today's discussion. And as a matter of fact, if there's something you would like me to talk about or show you or whatever, now remember, I am not a professional. I say that all the time. I just tell you what I've experienced and what I've learned from my experiences. But if there's something else I can help you out with that you would think, that it would be good content for one of my Idiot Quilter sessions, then please drop them in a comment to me or send me an email. My email address is always at the end of these videos. And just keep in mind, though, too, when you write comments, and I can't necessarily answer all my comments. I try. I do try. But sometimes people ask me some very, very technical things. And to be honest, if I could actually make a video showing you how to do those, I would. But I'm an amateur on a lot of levels here, okay? So just keep that in mind. I do my best. I try my best for you, okay? So thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next week for the next Idiot Quilter. Bye for now.